Yeah, I go by Kato On The Track. I'm a #1 charting Billboard producer. I've worked with Grammy nominated multi-platinum artists like Tyga, Joyner Lucas, Jack Harlow, Snoop Dogg, E40. Used to be signed to an independent label out of LA called Funk Volume. So I had the chance to work with Hobson, Dizzy Wright, Jaron Benton, a lot of independent artists as well. Um, and most recently we have been working on a lot of brand partnerships, kind of more on the influencer and brand side. So we've worked with companies like Facebook, Red Bull, did a campaign with Team USA for the Tokyo Olympics this year, which was awesome. CoverGirl, uh, United Masters, Song Trust, Slate Digital, list goes on and on. So yeah, man, I'm just excited to be here and to talk to y'all.
Yeah, there's very few things you haven't done, it seems.
Hey, man, there's always more that can be done.
Definitely. I think that intro is like kind of a perfect, way to start this off, right? Like you've touched on so many different parts of the industry. Like, so what does it really mean, I guess, in today's world with everything so digital and so global to be like a producer? Like, what does a producer really mean today?
I think the role of a producer is looking different and it's kind of moving in a different direction, right? Of course, you're always going to have the more traditional role of like a producer, that guy in the studio, typically in like hip hop or R&B, they're the guys that make the music behind the lyrics, and guys and girls, I should say. And yeah, but I think we're kind of moving towards a space where it's opened up a lot for producers to build their own brands. And, companies are wanting to do these social media campaigns with producers and musicians and people that make music, because music is global. And that's the appeal that we have as producers, is that we bring artists together, we make music, and that's hugely valuable in today's commercial space. So there's just a need for music across the board, and even a bigger need for a producer that can bring more value outside of just the music, which is an audience. And if you can figure out a way to build an audience and build a brand around that, then there's tons of opportunities for you today.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've definitely noticed with like the work that you've done is, you're a producer, but I feel like you're a marketer at heart, right? You've been able to create this ecosystem of your within your own brand, and it just touches on all these different facets of the industry. And I think that allows you to kind of really tap into all these different things to get exposure into in the same at the same time, just continuously build your community.
Yeah.
I think, if you want to explain a little bit, to people that are kind of just getting started, like what are some of those first steps to like building that brand or building your own community?
For me, it was like posting content and really just sharing my music and talking to my audience. And that was something that I learned actually. I don't know if I consider myself a marketer, but I actually started out rapping over my own beats, because like when I started making beats, I didn't know any rappers. So I was like, all right, well, I'll just start rapping over my own tracks. And so kind of moving in that direction, obviously I started connecting with different artists, and I just started observing like what they were doing to promote their music, to promote their music videos, to promote their brands. And one thing that they were all doing was like they were getting active on social media, they were sharing content, they were getting to know their audience. It wasn't just all like, yo, I'm spamming my link on Instagram, go click it. It was like, nah, they were literally connecting and building a relationship with their audience. And I found that hugely valuable. And so I took those same lessons and those same ideas and just applied them to my producer career. And I think that's why we see things moving in the direction that it is, because like the world has just opened up with social media. And now that the pandemic is starting to chill out, you know, we can like start to move around and start to be social again. And that's what it's all about to me. It's just building a relationship with your audience off of those like commonalities, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's really interesting about this era that we're in is like you can have such a big community, but you can be very intimate with them at the same time, right? Like you can have those one-to-one relationships with people all across the world, which was never really possible before.
Yes.
And that's something I know like you've done a really good job with, like just the way that you even just reply to comments and like interact with people on socials. Like I know I think you were telling me a couple years back how you just dedicate a certain number of hours every day just to kind of do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time, bro. And it's, you know, I come from the era of like, this is going to make me sound old as hell, but I come from the era of going to the mall and handing out CDs and taking down people's emails, like not typing it into my iPad, literally having a notepad with a pen that they would write their name and their email. I come from that era. So when Instagram became a thing and when Twitter became a thing and TikTok now, like, man, that opened my mind up to all the different possibilities that I could use to engage and be on these tools and these platforms to further like get to know my audience and share content with them. And you know, I would like call up fans and talk to them on the phone. Like I've done it all, man. Like I've taken advantage of every opportunity to connect with my audience.
So touching on that a little bit, how do you like actually manage all this like wealth of information from your community, right? Because it's like you have all these different social platforms, you have email lists, you have all these different ways of engage with people in live and over webinar and over internet, and just like how do you like keep track of all that personally?
I don't know, bro. I mean, like, you know, um, over the years, it just kind of becomes a part of your daily routine. And I've been very intentional about keeping that very high on my priority list to stay engaged with my audience. So whether that means through emails, through text messaging, through tweeting, through posting on Instagram, replying to DMs, like I do a little bit as much as I can. If I'm watching TV or watching Netflix, I'm still on my phone, just like replying to people in the DMs, you know? So it's very much, it's just super important to me. And if you value something that much, then you make it a priority and you make time for it. So yeah, it's 24 hours in a day. We all got the same time, man. And it's just about how you use that time.
I mean, just looking at everything that you have going on, what are like one of the things that you use to keep yourself motivated every day, like going in knowing that like you have this laundry list of stuff that you want to get done? Like how do you just fight through that every day, even on the days that you may not be feeling that that total drive?
Yeah, there's definitely those days. But at the end of the day, I'm still passionate, man. I still love what I do. And there are still a lot of things that I haven't accomplished. And I keep it very real with myself about what those things are. And that's what drives me to be persistent and to continue pushing every day as if it was like the very first day that I got in the game, you know? So I would say I'm more driven and hungry now than I was ever before. And there's always something new, right? There's always new challenges. And I personally love the challenge of being an entrepreneur because there's so much that I haven't accomplished yet. And there's so much that I'm curious about. And there's so much that I want to try. And that's what keeps me motivated because I haven't hit all those items on my checklist yet.
So I mean, there's definitely listeners right now that are they're just starting off, they're working real hard, but they may not be seeing like those results right away. Can you like explain a little bit about the timeline that it took to get you here? Because I think it's important to kind of reflect on that kind of stuff, just so there's perspective on like this isn't like an overnight thing, right?
Man, how much time we got? Damn, bro. I mean, I've been making music for the last 12 plus years now. I remember it all started in my college dorm room. I got my hands on a cracked version of FL Studio and started making beats right there in my dorm room. And I just haven't stopped ever since. Like I never took a break. Ever since that moment, I was like, man, this is really something that I could do just sitting in my room. You know, I don't have to be in $1 million studio anymore to make music. And so once I figured that out, I was hooked, and I just did it every single day ever since. So it's been a long journey. There's been a lot of challenges, a lot of bumps in the road. I always tell people that I've had way more L's in my career than I have wins. But the important part is that I never quit after, you know, experiencing challenges or taking those L's. And I think it just made me more resilient. It made me more hungry and more driven. Um, and at the end of the day, as long as you're not taking those L's like as a loss and you turn them into lessons, there's that saying, right? Then I think you'll figure out a way to make things happen. And that's just all what it comes down to.
So yeah, it was kind of like the moment they realized that you can be independent in a way, right? You don't have to sign a big studio like record deal. You don't have to be in like pay all this money to be in a fancy studio. Like you could be an individual independent creator and do this now as a living, right? And that's something that has only been possible in the last, 10, 15 years now. What is it like to you? What does it mean to be independent?
I think that term has changed over the years. I think you can be considered independent even if you're signed to an independent label. To me, being independent just means that you don't have access to like major resources. So if you're not signed to one of the major record labels, Universal, you know, whatever the big four are, um, then you're independent to me. So in terms of like what technically that means, I think it's just if you don't have access to those major resources, then you have to be more resourceful in the way that you do things because you don't have that big budget, right? And so that's what being independent to me means. Like you can still have a team and be independent. You can still have a budget and be independent. It just won't be that big bag uh, that's given to you from one of the major labels, like a big marketing budget, you know?
Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into being independent, right? Like you kind of just touched on. What are some of those aspects of, if you do make that decision to be like, I'm going to be an independent creator, I'm not going to sign a big deal. Like what do you need to take on yourself in that world?
I think being independent requires you to be a lot more hands-on with your business, right? It's going to require you to, like I said, be more resourceful to make things happen. Um, you got to wear a lot of different hats. You know, you're going to have to understand your business inside and out from the moment that you create the music to the moment that it's released into the world. And even after it's released, what to do after that, right? Like understanding how to collect your own publishing, how to understand like how to get sponsorships and partnerships for your tour, how to even put a tour together by yourself, and not even necessarily by yourself. Even if you have a small team, you got to know like, okay, what everyone's role is, like how are they fitting into your overall kind of vision of what your team looks like. What's everyone's role? Like you really are the boss and an employee at the same time, you know? And I think that's the challenging part about being independent, because not everyone has those skill sets. And so even speaking for myself, like I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about being an entrepreneur, but I learned over a decade plus of being around the right people, being in the right situations. You can learn a lot by just sitting and watching from a distance, you know? And I'm a very big believer in that. If you can just put yourself in the right rooms with people and surround yourself with the right people, you can learn incredible things by just being in the room. And so that's what I did for like a decade. And that's how I learned, you know, all these things. And now I have like an incredible team, a business partner, and we all work together to like grow this thing that I started. And it's a beautiful thing, man. And so I think being independent is like a nonstop journey and learning lesson.
Yeah, I mean that sense of like kind of learning through osmosis, right? Like just being around the right people, being around those types of conversations, really does, you know, brush off on you.
Yeah.
But you know, there's definitely like that point, right, that you can't become an expert in everything. So like, when's your decision on like when to bring people in to help?
That's a great question. And that's a question that I've been hearing a lot on my sound advice tour. When I pull up to these cities and talk to these independent creators, a lot of them want to know about building a team and when's the right time to do it. How do you find these people? And my answer is always the same. I think that if you're doing all the right things and taking all the right steps, those people eventually find their way into your world. And that doesn't mean that you can just sit back and wait for people to come to you. No, you got to be proactive. You got to be getting out there and shaking hands and making good first impressions and building relationships with people. Like perfect example, right? When my now business partner Benton James, when I first met him, this must have been like maybe 6 years ago. I really didn't have too much going on as a producer. I was just newly signed to Funk Volume, was brand new, like on most people's radars. I didn't have a lot of production credits, um, but we somehow connected. And every time he was in Atlanta, he would hit me up, be like, "Yo, Kato, what you working on? Pull up to the studio, just play me whatever you got." Right? It wasn't a forced relationship. It was never like, "Yo, let's figure out how to work. Like, let's do this, da da da." It was never like that. It was very organic in the beginning. And he would just tell me to pull up and play him whatever I was working on. We did that for literally 5 or 6 years before we started working together. Now he's my business partner, right? And we just started working together during the pandemic. And 2020, 2021 was the biggest year of my career. I mean, a lot of those credits that I just fired off and like the brand partnerships that I named at the beginning, those all happened within the last year and a half, you know? And I credit that to like just the level of partnership that me and Benton have and the team that we've built out, to be able to take on all that. Cause that would have never happened if it was just me working by myself. Like there's a limit, like you said, to how much you can do on your own. And I had hit that ceiling around pandemic time. And so when Benton came on, it just really like my business exploded. And I had a ton more opportunities. So yeah, I think that just speaks to the power of like being patient and allowing the right situations to come into your circle, as you level up and get to that point.
Yeah, you know, I hear a lot from, you know, people that are just starting out in their career. And a lot of it is sometimes like, oh, I just need a manager to help me get to that next level, right? Or I just need like a record deal because like then I'll pop kind of thing. But I think sometimes having that idea almost sets you back further, right? Because now you're just waiting for someone else to step in and try to elevate you instead of elevating yourself.
Yeah, yeah, 1,000%. I mean, I see it all the time too. I think it, you know, look at it like this. If you are not at the stage in your career as an artist, producer, or songwriter where you're generating enough income to pay someone else, then you're just not ready to have a team. And that doesn't mean that you can't have your cousin come in and kind of like help you on the manager side or like be your booking or your tour manager or your booking agent, you know, like you figure things out as you go, right? But if you really want to have someone in your corner who does this for a living, right? Their whole living is based off of managing careers, then you're not ready for that person unless you already have business going on for yourself. And I think sometimes a lot of artists use that as a cop out too. And it's a very convenient excuse to not put things into action and to not be proactive and become more resourceful to learn about these things, right? Because the roles that a manager takes on, like I think that you have to understand those roles and those responsibilities as well as them when they come in to step in and help you, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, like you don't want someone coming in and potentially taking advantage of you as well, right? Like you want to know what standard is with these types of deals and what to expect and what responsibilities they should be taking on, right? If you just blindly accept anyone that's willing to throw some help your way, that it might not be the best situation for you, right?
Absolutely. 1000% I agree.
One of the things that I definitely wanted to touch on was your virality in TikTok because I thought that was such a cool thing just to see just explode. And for everyone that doesn't know, Ken, do you want to give a breakdown of kind of what went on and the whole challenge and everything and how it kind of took off?
Yeah, for sure. So it was a big year for me on TikTok. I kind of jumped on TikTok. I jumped on the TikTok train maybe October of last year, somewhere around there. And within a few months of getting on TikTok, I had one of the most viral moments probably in the history of TikTok. And it was the So Pretty challenge. I don't know if the people in here remember it, but um, it started from a beat that I posted, and I just asked people to duet it, and it grew to become one of the top 5 most viral sounds in the world. And so now, not to mention the girl who duetted that beat that I posted. Her name is Rayana Maria. She ended up getting signed to Republic Records / Universal. The song I think is now sitting at almost 25 million streams just on Spotify. There are probably close to like 10 million user generated videos. And then celebrities got a hold of it and started like doing the whole trend and all that. It just went insane. And then kind of shortly after that, I had another viral moment on TikTok. It was called We Win Together. And that generated over 9.4 billion views on TikTok. And then the whole like Team USA Tokyo Olympics things happen on TikTok. So yeah, it just became a snowball of like these TikTok moments. So, hopefully everyone in here is on TikTok.
Let's speak about like the business side of what happened there, right? So you put that out there. Like, how did you then negotiate splits with the artist? I know Tyga jumped on and did a remix. Like, what happened there on more of like, yeah, the business aspects of this?
Okay, so if we start from around that time when the video started going viral on TikTok, so the thing with Tyga, I actually had a separate song on that same beat with Tyga. Because when I posted that beat, I noticed all the comments. Like, this is again just me being super engaged in what my audience is saying. I was reading the comments, and everyone was like, "Yo, send this beat to Tyga. This is for Tyga, Tyga, Tyga." So I reached out to him. I sent him the beat. He was really messing with it. So he actually recorded a whole different song. And thank God we didn't put out that song, because literally like a week later, the So Pretty thing started to go viral. And so I circled back around to Tyga and I was like, yo, bro, this thing's starting to go up on TikTok. Like, you should jump on this version. And so he ended up doing that. And that's how we got him on the remix. But on the business side, it was new territory for me. I won't lie, because I hadn't had a viral TikTok moment like that, and I didn't really know what to do. But thank God I had a team, and Benton was like kind of consulting me on the business side about what I should do. So we ended up reaching out directly to Rihanna to record the full song. So we did that just through Zoom, like how you and I are doing, because she lives in Australia. And so it was a huge time difference. It was like 2 a.m. Here in Atlanta, and we recorded the full record over Zoom. And so one thing that we knew was that because it was running up so crazy on TikTok, we knew that we didn't have long until the label started reaching out, right? And they already started emailing me, like they were trying to get in touch with me. So I was sending all those inquiries back to my team. But the original plan was to have it be a Kato on the Track, Rihanna Maria record, and we release it together independently. Or like we figure out the best situation for it, right? Well, you know, just like we predicted, the label started reaching out to her, and we didn't have any control over that, right? And I've never talked about this before. This is the first time that I'm actually like talking about this. But labels reached out to her and they were trying to sign her. And keep in mind, Rihanna is amazing. She's super talented, obviously, but she's 18 years old. And she had never recorded a song in her life before that. So all of this stuff, like I was texting her.
Is it me?
And she kept telling me how overwhelmed she was by everything. And so it was a lot, man. But at the end of the day, she ended up signing a deal with Victor Universal. And, you know, from there, we had to negotiate directly with the record label about the beat. And that was a whole process in itself, right? Because that wasn't our original plan. And so, you know, thank God again that I had Benton James and Billy Mann on my side to like negotiate that deal with me. And the lawyers, Josh Kamen, you know, it was a process.
I'm sure. Was that kind of the same situation with the Tyga release? Like, how was it now negotiating with like a much more famous artist that had already been established? Was it a different conversation?
You know, I won't lie to you. We had some very heated conversations from our side and from the label side, right? And I brought Tyga into the situation, and you know, Tyga's a businessman. Like I respect him for that. He's a very um, he's a very smart businessman, and so he actually, you know, he was the one who put Stephen Victor in touch with Rihanna because they have a close relationship. And I'm not mad about that. Like, I understand it. I get it. It's the business. And so they actually were kind of in business together. So it ended up almost being like Team Kato versus Team Victor / Universal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to negotiate just kind of according to those according to that like kind of framework. And man, it was a great learning lesson for me, because you know, we learned how to do things moving forward. But at the end of the day, the record came out. You know, we got points on the master. We got our publishing on it. We got paid a really nice check for the beat and for the production. So I'm not mad. I think it was a win-win all around.
So I know you probably can't go into too much detail, but some of those lessons you learned, can you share any of them with everyone on the call?
Yeah, I think I think having the right team in those situations, being prepared for those situations is really, really important, right? Because you can have something run up on TikTok and go viral, and the same situation happens. A lot of labels start reaching out to you, but if you don't know what you're doing, then that moment is going to come and go so fast, and it's going to leave your head spinning. And honestly, you're probably going to get taken advantage of, right? Someone's going to write you a big check. You're not going to get any royalties on it. They're just going to buy you out. And that song is going to run up and generate all these royalties on it. And you're not going to get a dime after that, right? So thank God I had the right team in my corner. I think the second lesson is to just know the business, like know what all these terms mean, know what the master is, know what the publishing is, have a good lawyer. Can't stress that enough. Find a good entertainment attorney, because when these deals start coming to you, you 1000% need an attorney to look over the paperwork to make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of. So yeah, other than that, like this whole business is a relationship game. So talk to people like they're humans, treat people like they're humans, and just build solid relationships. And I think you'll attract the right people.
That's a really good point, because I think sometimes what I've seen happen is that people get so aggressive or so defensive about certain positions that they completely burn bridges within the industry, where there could have been potential collaboration down the line. It's now like, oh, this person is way too hard to deal with, like, and that relationship's now over. um, have you had any experience kind of with a situation like that?
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of that, and I'm also guilty of that myself. Like I can remember specific times early on in my career where I kind of had like meltdowns on people that didn't deserve it, or I demanded money when I was broke, and that was just me being frustrated that I was broke. And like that's part of the journey. But I think I've been very blessed to, especially recently, just be around people in the industry that I look up to from a business standpoint and just from a personal standpoint too. And I see how they treat other people and how they deal in these like business deals and when they're talking to label execs. And that again, it just goes back to being a fly on the wall and just observing and learning from them. And so yeah, I think just treating people with respect and being a nice and good human being goes a very, very long way in this industry.
Definitely. Let's get into some money talk.
Are you talking my language?
Oh yeah. What does everyone need to know as an independent in order to make sure, I know this is a loaded question, but to make sure that you are collecting all the money that's out there for you? And we can kind of, I guess we can hit it topic by topic if you want. But let's say, let's start with like on the master side, like how, when we're talking about points on a record as a producer, like what is that whole scenario, and how do you make sure that you're getting that money?
As far as points as a producer, right? So there's a couple different ways to look at it. Obviously, there's the producer and there's the artist side of things, which we can touch on both. But as a producer, when you're talking about points on the master or artist points, like typically the standard is like 3 to 4%. And that means after whatever budget or whatever money is recouped, then you get 3 to 4% on the master of that record. So even, if it's sold to like a major label, let's say Universal acquires the song and they give you 3 to 4 points on the master as a producer, then that means that you're making 3 to 4% of the revenue from those like sales or from those streams on the master side, right? And then I know we can get like super deep on this stuff, but that's essentially what it means to get points on the master if you're a producer.
Well, one thing that I thought, like, is really interesting that you brought up is that's after recoupment, right?
Mhm.
Which is something I think, people also, it goes back to knowledge about how all this stuff works, right? Like if you maybe are giving up splits on the publishing in order to get points, but that artist is in a very has taken out a very big advance, right? Like there's a chance that you may never see any of that,
Yeah.
right? So it's like understanding where is a smart way to negotiate, where you need to, push effort to make sure that you're covered across all different scenarios, right?
Yep. Yep. And I think there's look, there's like a standard baseline of knowledge that I think every producer, artist, or songwriter should have about the business. But that doesn't mean you need to know this stuff inside and out, right? That's why I stress like it's just important to have the right team and the right people around you. Know an entertainment attorney that can like really break this stuff down for you. Know someone like CJ at Song Trust who can like explain to you what publishing is and how that works. Like this is how I've learned all that information over the years. So yeah, I think it's important to know all this stuff, but also just learn from other people.
All right. And then since you brought it up, I didn't bring it up, you brought it up, publishing.
Okay.
uh, I know publishing, like it's definitely one of those topics that I think scares a lot of people because it's just so confusing, right? Especially if you're starting off and understanding rights and how royalties are generated, where they go, how to collect them. What was kind of like your experience, because prior to you and me meeting was almost about 4 years ago, kind of what was your take on publishing and everything that you had to deal with in that world?
Man, bro, I was just as confused as everyone else about what publishing was and how that even worked. You know what I mean? It was probably around the time that I met you and asked you a lot of questions about what it is, and you came on tour with us and explained to everyone in every city what it was, and that's when I kind of started to understand, right? But basically, to break it down in the simplest form, publishing is the ownership of the different components of a song. So me as a producer, right? I make beats. So my publishing would be the underlying musical composition of a song. If you're an artist or if you're a songwriter, you write your own lyrics. It would be the lyrics, the words of the song, right? So you can literally break it down like that. It's the music and the lyrics, right? And the master is like the overall recorded piece of music. Um, that's what publishing is. And so anytime your music gets streamed on any public platform or in any public arena, right? It generates royalties both on the master and on the publishing side. And a lot of people don't know that. They're like, well, as long as I'm with United Masters, as long as I'm getting paid out from one of these distribution companies, I'm good. I'm getting all my money, right? But that's not true because you're missing out on the publishing side. And that's the part that a lot of these distributors are not going to collect for you. So that's why it's important to have Song Trust. And when I learned that, signed up, started registering all my songs, and then those checks started coming in, right? So it's just understanding those pieces is important if you want to get all your money.
And so when you're working with, because you've had a lot of experience with this, like when you're working with a label and an artist signed to that label and they release the music, how do you rely on them to take care of publishing, or do you like how do you work with them to get the data and who's responsible for what?
So from what I remember, like I still retain ownership of my publishing even when it's sold to like the So Pretty record, for example, right? Like I still retain all my publishing rights. I was the sole producer on that record, so I own half of the song basically, from a publishing standpoint. And so I register that song with Song Trust, and And as far as the master goes, like that is now owned by Universal. And so they're cutting me checks because I have points on the master side as well. They're going to start cutting those checks as soon as the costs are recouped and everything. And those checks are going to come directly from Universal. And then my publishing checks come from Song Trust, or, you know, for anyone else, whoever's administering your publishing.
Yeah. Song Trust clients.
Hopefully Song Trust. Yeah.
Sound Exchange. And this is obviously like a little bit more US focused. Do you want to talk about a little bit like what their role is and, you know, how to make sure that you're covered there?
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong. Sound Exchange collects royalties on the master for non-interactive streaming. And so those platforms like where you can't go in and select which song you want to play next, right? Like Spotify, you can go in, pick which song you want, it'll play it. But for platforms like Pandora, for Sirius XM radio, right? Any other satellite radio, those are the kind of mediums and platforms that Sound Exchange is going to collect for you on the master side. I'm gonna be honest, I think Sound Exchange's like user experience is incredibly outdated. And so hopefully if someone at Sound Exchange is watching this, like please update that because it's a horrible user experience. I hate the way that they do it. But yeah, that's essentially what Sound Exchange does.
Yeah, I can tell you firsthand from a technology company, it's hard to streamline this stuff.
Yeah.
I know everyone sometimes like gives us grief, and we tried to make it as easy as possible. It's just it requires so much data under so many different situations.
Right.
But we're kind of coming towards the end. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what you got going on currently with Sound Advice. Because I know that's a big tour. That are you on your? I guess last year you took off, but is this second year or third year?
Yeah, so this is the second full tour that I'm doing for the Sound Advice tour, and basically what I'm doing is I go city to city. This tour is 24 cities total, and they're all in the U.S. We're currently planning a whole Canada tour for next year, but right now we're just on the U.S. leg of the tour. And so, yeah, I just go city to city. I see some people here in the comments already came to the Sound Advice tour, which is amazing. And I meet with a small group of 25 artists, producers, and songwriters. And we kind of get together in a little private studio, and I drop a lot of game on the music business. I give them feedback on their music. I have special guests pull up. In New York, we had Dave Mulatto, who's the director of marketing for United Masters. We're in partnership with them for the tour. So that just presents a whole different set of opportunities for people that come. I had my partner, Benton James, who has a label, Icons and Giants, under Warner. He came, you know, people got to play their music for them. I've collaborated with a lot of the people that have come to the Sound Advice tour. I've even signed a couple producers from the Sound Advice tour. So it's just a really good hub if you want to expand your network, if you want to expand opportunities for yourself, and you want to expand your understanding and knowledge of the music industry and the music business. It's like the perfect way to do it, right? So that's basically what the Sound Advice tour is. We just got back from Philly, DC, New York, and Boston, which was incredible. And this year we still have St. Louis and Detroit coming up. And then we got a bunch of new cities all the way through December.
You got to tell them where to get the tickets. Come on.
So just go to soundadvicetour.com if you want to get tickets. A lot of the dates are getting close to sold out because, like I said, it's only 25 people. I wanted to intentionally keep it very small and intimate so that I could give them like really, really useful feedback on their music and just really connect with each person individually. And the best way I knew how to do that was by keeping it small. So yeah, soundadvicetour.com. That's where you get tickets.
Awesome. Final advice since we're talking about sound advice, for, you know, creators getting going, whether they're artists, producers, songwriters, like what are the main steps they should start taking today to really start growing their brand and their influence within the music industry?
I think that music fans are dying for something different. And it's funny, right? Because once something catches on, once a trend or a sound becomes popular, everyone wants to do that thing, right? And then people get tired of it. And then they're just like dying for something new. And that's like kind of the cycle of the music industry. And I think if you are an artist or a creator that knows how to hone in on your own individual sound and your brand, and you can develop a story and a narrative around that, that becomes very, very powerful. And those are the things that creates new trends that everyone else is going to follow. So I would say to every music creative, musician, artist, producer, songwriter in here, be authentic, know how to hone in on your authenticity, develop it, become really good at your craft, and learn how to tell a story around it. I think storytelling, that's like what we do as creatives, right? That's what music is. We're telling stories through our music. And so really knowing how to tell your own story and communicate that effectively, I think that's what's going to make you successful in this business. And it's really, really hard to do. Don't get me wrong. Like, it takes years and years and years of making mistakes and learning from them, and just being a student of the game to really understand how to do that effectively. So be patient with yourself at the same time.
Yeah, and there's more platforms out there than ever to tell that story as well, right? Like, you don't know where your audience necessarily is yet, or where your music or your specific sound is going to resonate. So making sure, I think, right, being on these different things, testing things out, trying out new platforms, right? Like, even the So Pretty challenge, it's kind of it's a story in a way, right? It
Yeah.
goes back to the whole, you know, if you listen to the lyrics and everything, like it ties into the TikTok challenge. And that's, I think, why it really resonated with people and really took off.
Yeah.
Yeah, any closing remarks for everyone before we
Um,
shut it
Man,
down?
I just want to say shout out to Song Trust. Thank you, CJ, as always. I'm going to pull up to the after party tonight, so I'll see you there. And for anyone else in here, like, connect with me. I'm all over social media, at Kato Producer. Hopefully, I get to meet you guys in person on the Sound Advice tour, and we can talk more and chop it up. And I get to hear your music, and hopefully, we can collaborate too.
Awesome. Thank you, Kato, so much for your time.
Thank you all. Thank you,
Talk
CJ.
soon. And everyone else, we have one more session coming up right after this. So stick by. And like Kato mentioned, we are having a couple of happy hours in New York, LA, and Atlanta. If you haven't RSVP'd, you can go on the website and RSVP or email. There, we send out an email that has an RSVP. So go check it out. But yeah, Kato, thank you again. Appreciate the time.
Love y'all. Thank you.
Take care.